society and so on. But now, 20 years later, I think that the book and the movie also respond quite strongly to the current economic situation. I mean, we are all talking about this dependency on debt, on the economy, and what would your comment be on that?
Oh yeah, well, I don't know really. I think that there's obviously parallels between. I mean, Trainspotting is a kind of it's a 90s sort of it's a 90s book and a 90s film, primarily about the 80s, really. And I think that it's tempting to say that it's because you have a kind of conservative government that is very similar kind of social conditions in Britain as it was back when the book was kind of intended. But really, you had the kind of issues of poverty, social exclusion, and subcultures of kind of heavy drug taking have never really gone away, because you've not really had a government. You've had 30 years of neoliberal government in Britain, whether it's been Conservative or New Labour or Conservative Liberal coalition. It's been basically the same kind of unbroken social policy, which has kind of left, which has been not a policy of no real job opportunities, no real education opportunities, and kind of poor housing and bad social conditions for most working class people in the UK, and particularly people from old kind of traditional kind of industrial environments. So I don't think it's really changed that much. I think it's kind of I think people on the left in Britain, they're always relieved in some ways when it's a Conservative government, so they can kind of sort of vent their spleen against the Conservative government. But the Labour governments have followed really exactly the same kind of social policies, but with a very, maybe with kind of a bit more of a human face. But that's been about the size of it.
The film was made 3 years later after the book. The book was, of course, an enormous success. What took the British industry so long to make the book into a movie?
Oh, I don't think it's so long at all. I mean, I think a 3-year transition from publication to a film being released is phenomenally quick, really, by all standards. I mean, it's like we've got the Filth movie coming out this summer, and that's taken about 12 years to translate into a book, and Ecstasy took about 10 years as well. It's a phenomenally difficult process because it's not like, independent movie making is a stupid thing to get into. You have to be a bit crazy to do it because it's not like the studio system in America where one person writes a check, says yes and writes a check, and then you go and do the thing. It's just ferreting around looking for money, and we were very fortunate that Trainspotting happened so quickly because of a number of different factors, and the first one was that the book kind of enjoyed this kind of phenomenal sort of success and this whole cult kind of success. And the second one was that Danny Boyle and Andrew MacDonald and John Hodge were coming off Shallow Grave, which was this really massively successful British independent film. And the two of these factors working together kind of managed to expedite this whole process very quickly, which you wouldn't have done. One of these things on their own wouldn't have been sufficient. So you need to have a lot of things happen. Like independent filmmaking is about 30 people around the table and everybody saying yes at once, and it doesn't really, normally never happens like that. So it was a very, very quick transition, because when you think about it, I mean, the book's out in 70. The books generally it takes a year to write a screenplay. If a screenplay takes any less than a year to get together through all the processing, it's usually not very good. So you have to go through all the editing processes with it to make it better. So, you know, basically you sign the rights off in you know, the book comes out in '93. You negotiate with certain parties about the rights to the film. You sign the right, you get the rights and all the legal people going through that in '94. You get the script in '95 when you're raising the money, and you shoot it at the end of '95 and it comes out in '96. I mean, that's a phenomenally fast turnaround.
Since you started to talk about film industry, we have two phenomena right now. I think one phenomenon is its obsession with sequels, and the other is some kind of pornification with even mainstream art. So my question would be, what happened with your sequel to Trainspotting, Porno, which wasn't written immediately after Trainspotting, but why isn't it already made into a successful movie sequel?
Yeah, I mean, this is a question that I get asked all the time, and I know that Ewan McGregor, every time he has a film out, and Danny Boyle, every time he has a film out, they get asked the very same question too. And the basic reason is probably, you know, we've not really got a script together, and it was when it came out. The idea was that John Hodge and I, who did adapted Trainspotting, would work on the script together to do Porno, and we haven't. And I mean, John's done a rough draft of it, of a starter script, but basically John and Andrew and myself have kind of been working on other things, you know, constantly, and it's very hard. It's hard for me to go back to a project, you know, that's something I've done with any passion. I like going into new stuff, so it's probably me, if anybody, that's kind of held it up. And there's been a lot of there's been all these red herrings in the, you know, in the press about kind of Ewan and Danny having fallen out and all this kind of stuff. But the basic issue is that you need to have a script, and it's kind of been us that has been remiss. We've not kind of provided them with a script to kind of fall out over yet. So yeah, so it's just a matter of us all getting on the same page in terms of our time commitments. We've all been working pretty much flat out over the last sort of decade on different projects, and it's just getting around the table. And it's not anything that there's no personal kind of thing about it, because you know, I'm very close friends with Andrew and John. It's just that whenever we do meet up, you know, we kind of talk about everything else except porno. You know, we sort of go for a drink or go to the football, but we don't really, you know, we'll talk about it, and then we haven't been able to earmark time to sit down together, and it probably needs us, you know, both to sit, you know, the three of us to sit down in a hotel room for a weekend and just kind of go through the book and the script, and you know, and start the ball rolling. But we haven't had time to do that so far.
You have written your own screenplays, and you have also seen your works adapted for the big screen. Which was more frustrating for you?
I think it's been, as I said, you know, independent cinema is a very frustrating thing. And I mean, I know that the recent film I've been working on has been Filth, the adaptation of one of my books that I was one of the producers on, and this kind of had such an amazing, kind of a strange history. It went through Harvey Weinstein's company at Miramax for a while. It went through a kind of, it was with Screen South, and it was kind of, it was being partly kind of financed and led by them with UK Film Council money after. And the big thing, that fell down on this sort of rock that we couldn't get a script together. We had all sorts of directors attached, we had all sorts of screenwriters attached, and we couldn't figure out how to adapt it cinematically, how to make it work kind of cinematically. And this guy that I met about 5 years ago, John Baird, who had done a film, which was a UK feature film called Cast, which was quite well received. He had this idea about how it would work, and he was the first person I'd ever spoken to that could convince me that he knew how this book could be translated to cinema, how it would work cinematically on screen. And so that was just kind of like, from then on in, this is like kind of 4 years later. It was a very quick, again, a very quick process once we'd actually got the script the way we wanted it. And that's really the key to it, I think. It's like, it doesn't matter whether you're doing an original script or having somebody else adapt one of your books. It's all down to the screenplay. The screenplay has to really be good, and it has to work. It kind of has to read well, and it has to. It can't afford to be too slavish to the book, but the adaptation has to capture the spirit of what made the book successful.
Yesterday you made a remark that stuck with me, and you said during the discussion that writing for you is like directing an invisible movie. Why don't you direct movies more often?
Well, the great thing about being a writer is you've got these people that don't exist. You know, you're just sitting in this room with people that don't exist. And when you get sick of them, you just walk out the door. You know, but if you're a director, I mean, and I have directed. I mean, I've directed a few short films, and I've directed one feature-length film, and it's kind of fun up to a point. I mean, I love doing kind of short films, and I love doing kind of band videos, which I've done a few of. But the feature film I directed, I found it very hard. I found it very kind of tough going, because after a few weeks, you start to get a bit fed up with the people that are there, and you've got to be this happy camper and keep everybody on side. And you know, I mean, it's like everybody, a bunch of people. You know, they're going to have their ups and downs and their fallout. And there's that terrible sag in the middle of a movie, which you know, you kind of if you know, most of them are away from home. They're not, you know, they've not got their family around them. They're not sleeping in their own beds. The accommodation they have might not be what they want. You know, they might, you know,